Hey everyone, it's Finn here. I'm just recording a brief message before the video. Originally, we had envisioned this to be a part one of two, going over all of the Best Picture nominations before the Oscars. But life kind of got in the way, and we weren't able to film the part two, but we still wanted to release part one. So this is us talking about half of the films, and then we will come back with a part two that will be more of a recap of who won, the various categories, and we'll also talk about some of the other films that were up for nomination or for consideration that we didn't talk about on this episode. So that is why we only talked about half of the episode or half of the movies here. And so, yeah, thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoy the video regardless.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. Today we're going to be talking about movies
Yes.
and the Oscars this
Yes.
year. So, today in studio we have.
But do you want me to say something?
You introduce yourself.
Oh, I'm Finn.
I'm Miguel.
And I'm Gray.
All right. Well, shall we?
Yeah, yes.
So there's a bit of a disclaimer. There are 10 films to watch, and we are not discussing all 10.
All 10 at once.
Well, we're talking about the Best Picture nominations.
Yes.
Yes.
For the Oscars.
Yes.
For the Oscars this year. And for warning, there will be spoilers. So if you have not watched any of these movies and you don't want to get spoilers, this will be a good stopping moment. Because
thanks for
after this,
tuning in.
onwards, there will be spoilers. Go watch the movies and come back. So with that, I think.
Well, let's say, since you're at the beginning of the episode, let's say the movies that we're talking about today are
Yes.
Conclave, Dune Part 2, Wicked,
Yes,
The Substance,
correct.
And Emilia.
and Emilia Pérez.
And Emilia Pérez.
And we'll, I think what would be nice, and I can timestamp this
Okay.
in the description of the video, so you can go through. And so we'll announce when we're talking about the next movie. So then you can, if you've maybe you've seen Wicked and you want to hear what we talk about, what we say about Wicked, but you haven't seen The Substance and don't want that spoiled,
Yep.
you can
Yep.
skip around.
Sweet.
And
Cool.
also, we're not in any way, shape, or form getting paid to give these opinions. This come purely from our experience in movies, and we're just gonna have fun talking about these movies. Some we like, some we didn't like, and I think for the most part, us three this year, we watch the good, the bad, and we watch Emilia Pérez. So with
Yes.
that, let's just start.
What should we start with? What calls?
You know,
what's calling to you?
I
Gray?
know we just said that we would start alphabetically, but I am feeling musical, and I think we should start
With Wicked.
with Wicked.
So
All right.
what we'll do for each one at the beginning, we're all gonna secretly write down
Right.
what we would give it out of 10,
Yes.
and then we
Right.
will all reveal together, and then we'll talk.
Okay.
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 So
And we're doing out of 10, so 10 being the highest that we rank these movies, and 0 being how, yes.
10 being, oh my gosh, I loved it so much. And 0 being, I don't know, Emilia Pérez.
we're really burying the lead there with
Yes.
Emilia Pérez.
Yes. All right,
Okay,
well,
are you ready?
Yeah.
3, 2, 1.
I gave it 6.
I also give it a 6.
Oh, I should have written it much bigger.
A 10.
a 10.
A
You
10.
gave it a 10.
Yes.
Okay. Well, Wicked.
Wicked, yes. So, a little bit of background. I'm a big theater kid. I've never performed Wicked, but I've seen the musical. I love The Wizard of Oz. And to me, the biggest win for this movie is that you didn't need any background on the movie. More to the point, you don't even have to like musicals to be able to enjoy this movie. Because I sat with many people who are anti-musicals, but they love the movie. Because on a surface level, the message, it's still there. And at least the musical parts or numbers weren't uncomfortable to me to watch. And even I welcome the new ones, having Kristen Chenoweth.
Yeah, how
and
many new ones
it's
were
in
there?
If
New
I,
songs? Some are new
Yes.
songs in this
Oh
movie?
yeah.
They did some like there was like an homage song, and they brought the old actors back. And
I knew that, yeah.
Yeah,
But
I
that wasn't new, I
believe
didn't know
I've never watched the original Wicked on stage.
okay.
But I believe there were 3 movies. I mean, 3 songs.
You've
that were
never seen it
introduced.
on stage?
I've never seen it on stage. I will be in New York.
I thought. Oh well, that's nice. I thought you had seen it on stage.
Never. I've listened to
Okay,
the soundtrack, but I've never been able to watch it live.
Do you remember which other 2 were added?
Michelle Yeoh's song, definitely, when she's with Elphaba and telling her that you can do this.
Okay. Yeah.
You're not alone. That one, and correct me if I'm wrong. I'm pretty sure the one with the wizard is also added in there.
Okay.
It's a little
Yeah.
bit of a song. He's kind of like going.
It's
Just Jeff Goldblum.
I will say
Jeff
That
Goldblum.
actually that wasn't scripted. Jeff Goldblum was just on set doing that,
that
and they hit record.
the
Yeah.
fact that Jeff Goldblum was in that movie in the first place was the biggest twist for me. I mean, because
I did not know he was. Good.
my perspective, I have seen a good amount of musicals in my life. I'm not a big musical guy. I've never seen or heard of Wicked until the film
Me?
came out.
Oh.
Until
You
this
never
guy-
heard of Wicked?
No, I've never even heard of it.
Really?
What?
And, like I didn't even know it was a book or anything. I actually didn't know.
Are
it
you
existed.
caveman?
It is a
What are you
bit.
talking
It
about?
is a bit of like I kind of have a caveman perspective of this film.
Okay.
It came out and I was like, oh, what is this? This is something completely new to me. And what I will say about the movie that they did very, very well is that it is an incredibly good and I'm assuming faithful adaptation
Yes.
of theater for film.
Mm-hmm.
It really, I mean, when you watch something like Phantom of the Opera, it's a little bit more leaning towards tailored to film rather than being an adaptation of theater.
Right.
But Wicked, every single musical number was like this choreographed group of people like dancing, and
Yeah.
like it very much felt almost as if I was in theater, which I can respect. And what I was telling Miguel, I think yesterday, was they have flying chimps and they have witches and wizards, and that appeals to me more than most musicals.
Yet you gave it a 6.
And yet I gave it a 6.
I mean,
It's okay.
Yeah.
There's nothing new and like, oh,
well, that's the thing. Because it's not a new movie. It's not an original idea, for sure. I mean, The Wizard of Oz has been around since the 40s.
yeah.
Earlier than that.
Earlier than the 30s, I think. Like,
Well, the movie, but then whatever. We don't need to get into
Yes,
the book.
exactly.
But yes.
Yes.
so it really wasn't offering anything new, but I think rather connecting with the newer audiences that have never been able to. You could even go as far as say, theater is expensive. So it was connecting with those people who could never afford a ticket to go see a play of that caliber, or just cities that would never be playing a musical like that
Yeah.
because of Broadway.
I will say I was impressed with the theater stuff they did do in that movie, the choreographing and the way they implemented like full dance scenes like in the background and then managed to like keep that as a focal point while having like the main characters in the foreground, kind of doing the more filmy part of
Yeah.
the film. I thought was very impressive, but it just, I don't know. I'm sure it's leaning into like the vibe of the production off Broadway, but it just feels very stuck in this almost like camp. It's just a little, I don't want to say corny, but I mean,
But
with
they've gone.
Ariana Grande the entire movie going like,
Yeah.
and like the thing that they do where they just like make up words. They just like
Yes,
put
yes.
fake.
Oh, yeah. Like, I'm trying to think of an example, but I know exactly
Like
what you're talking about.
stupendiferous and
Yeah,
oh, this
yeah.
was
Stupendiferous.
horrendobliss and
Yeah.
it's just
Yes.
It
I was
gets
like-
tiring.
it's not that it even gets tiring. It just consistently reminds me that this is like
It's a
for-
fantasy world.
It's a very high fantasy world, but also it's a fantasy world for theater kids.
And not even that, because how many movies have been a fantasy, and there's another one nominated that's science fiction, but still in this fantasy world.
Okay.
And so, uh, in those worlds, they have new names for these planets, and things are called different. I think Wicked, what does really good is bringing together everything that audiences love from The Wizard of Oz, what new generations would possibly like, and it delivers in a way that everyone, old school, new school, can enjoy.
Yeah.
And I remember hearing back in the early production days for this movie, many haters about the movie. They were never gonna be able to pull it off, because there's been countless examples. Phantom of the Opera, to this day, I think the one with Gerard Butler, it's
Okay. So
horrendous.
let's not
adaptation.
even. Let's not.
Then you have Cats.
Okay.
Another mistake that
Don't
happened
compare
there.
cast.
What do you think of Les Mis? 2012 Les Mis.
Yes, and I still don't know how the same director who was able to give us an amazing musical as Les Mis was able to perform Cats in the horrendous.
Wait,
way
it was
that
the
happened.
same guy who
It
directed
was the
both?
same person.
Oh my goodness.
I know.
Not that
But you
2012 Les Mis is like God's gift to the earth or anything, but like,
Yes.
But do you think because I agree with just about everything you just said, and you think for that reason you warranted a 10
Yes.
because
In my delusional world, Wicked
okay.
is walking with Best Picture.
did you say delusional?
I was about
Yes.
to say that's the
Oh.
key word.
Yeah.
In my imaginary and delusional world,
Right.
Wicked gets Best Picture.
Well, I'm okay with letting you live in your fantasy.
Yeah,
That's fine.
and I will agree with you. You know, from my caveman perspective, it showed me, it allowed me to kind of experience that story, and it had never reached me before or my audience. So,
And now you're popular.
and now I'm popular.
So I also have sort of a caveman perspective on this film. I've heard of it, so maybe I'm more like Neanderthal, like on the plains.
yeah.
You know, I'm not in the cave, but
It's
I'm
not
like.
fully like Denisovan level.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I'm in the. I like sometimes I go back to the cave. I have fire, maybe some basic tools. So like, I've heard of Wicked,
Yeah.
and I heard Popular. I heard Defying Gravity. I also gave it a 6 because I just. It is one of those things where I can agree with everything you just said and like
Yeah.
understand why people love it, but like I just didn't really connect with it. I also didn't think it needed to be as long as it was.
Yeah.
I'll have to agree with that. I've watched that movie to this day 10 times.
What?
10
It's been out
times
like
that I've
3
watched.
months.
Yes. And yeah, exactly. But that's just how much I loved it.
Okay.
However, every single time that I watch, the 2 hours and change drag a little bit more.
Well, it's like one, when I was in the theater and they did Wicked, Part 1, I almost like yelled at the screen. I would have been so mad if I didn't have the Regal monthly pass. Allowed me to go to the movies infinitely. If I was actually paying for my ticket,
Yes.
in reality and not fake paying for it in my mind, I would have been a little bit upset. And also, I think what part of the runtime is I didn't really connect with the music that much. I
Yeah.
will be real. Like Cynthia Erivo is, she's stunning.
Very impressive,
She's
yeah.
incredible. I'm assuming she's nominated for, I don't know what the award title would it be.
Best actress?
Well, is there like a best vocal performance or?
I don't think.
Best-
No.
Okay, well she should win something because she's great. I want to see her more stuff,
100%.
and she
We'll
does
get there.
an incredible
get there.
job.
Yes.
And I think Ariana Grande was funny.
I agree.
I like Jonathan Bailey as whatever his name was.
Fiero?
Fiero?
Yes.
Okay.
Bach is the other guy.
Who's Fiero?
He's like the
The
prince.
Scarecrow.
Oh,
The
the
like
prince.
very
Jonathan
spoilers.
Bailey.
I didn't know that. He becomes the
No,
Yes.
it's just like they're all symbols, right?
Oh.
One of them is a
No,
symbol of this
no.
scarecrow, or he literally becomes a
Yes.
scarecrow.
Okay. This cannot be spoilers because the musical has been out for a good 15 years. So
Okay, but you're speaking about this to
It's
two
fine.
cavemen.
It's fine.
You're showing up on a horse and chariot to two guys with
Right,
torches
right.
out.
yes. Okay. The prince.
He's
Fiero.
Prometheus.
The prince
Yeah, exactly.
is Jonathan Bailey.
Okay. And
Okay.
yeah.
I like Jonathan. I mean, but it was like there were certain times where like a song would start and I'd be like,
Here comes another one. Yes,
like,
yes,
all right,
yes.
the plot's to grind to the halt.
Yeah.
Grind to a halt for the next 3 minutes.
This is just the way that I look at it. I want to give it a 10 out of 10. But
Yeah, I do too.
It's a to be continued, so it's immediately a 9. And it's like 2 hours and 30 minutes long, and it dragged, so it's an 8. I didn't love the music, and I didn't love the cinematography. But I thought it was funny, and I thought it was pretty well written, and I thought the characters were, unique, and it was a good adaptation of
Would
theater.
it make you feel better knowing that most of the stuff wasn't a green screen?
Wasn't a green
It
screen?
was not. They actually built the set.
That is pretty impressive.
All the
That is really
flowers,
impressive.
those were real. The production went in and planted every single tulip in those fields
Wow, no way.
so that they
That is-
would have all those.
Okay, I'll give it a 6.2.
Everything was well researched, and yes, even the songs weren't recorded, like pre-recorded. Those were
Oh, they
delivered.
must have been.
No. Those were delivered live, in the same set, but it was closed,
Okay.
and nobody was allowed to talk
But so
or
it is,
make a single sound.
but it is dubbed then still.
No, it was.
You're telling me that the scenes that we see in the movie
Where
are
they
the
are
same
singing?
scenes that we're hearing.
Yes.
The performance that I'm watching is the performance that I'm hearing.
Yes.
Okay, that is truly impressive.
That's why, when you watch the movie and you listen to the soundtrack on Spotify, Apple Music,
It syncs up
it is
perfectly.
the exact same tone, the exact same level right there.
But not because they pre-recorded it, uploaded it
Yes,
to Spotify, and they
because that
dubbed it
doesn't
over.
happen. Because if you listen to, for example, Cats, if you watch the movie Cats,
Yeah.
the music sounds one way. If you listen to Cats on a streaming platform, it sounds totally different. And to accomplish what Wicked accomplished there,
That is
especially
impressive.
for Defying Gravity, do that one right there, on the fly,
in the air,
in the air.
500 feet off the ground.
Exactly.
How'd they do that?
That's
10 out of 10.
that's what a movie it's supposed to be.
When they gave those chimps wings, I was sitting there like, how is that
Yes.
even possible?
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
they were real chimps that
Yeah,
they
they were real
experimented
chimp,
on.
real spells, real wings.
Correct.
And you
Even
know what?
the-
That's another thing I liked about the film. I didn't know. I mean, it's from a book. I could have just read the book, I guess. But like, I really like how it expanded the world of Wizard of Oz.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know where the flying monkeys came from, and now I do.
See,
You're welcome.
I'm a big fan of the original Wizard of Oz, and one of my favorite things about the Wizard of Oz is, and I'm talking about ignoring Wicked, like they give just the movie like in a vacuum. One of my favorite things about the Wizard of Oz is that the witch is just evil for no reason, and she
Yeah.
loves being evil.
Yeah,
And so to add a tragic backstory where she's kind of good,
that's a good point.
it doesn't fit into my headcanon.
Yeah,
But it's okay. I'm not saying you can't make a revisionist.
yeah.
That's
It's
fine.
Star Wars.
Huh?
It's like Star Wars. We start
Like
with
with
episode
Anakin?
yes. Start with episode 4 with an already established villain, but then we get 1, 2, and 3, and it tells us how this villain came to be.
See, and that's the thing though, is that I will accept Wicked into my Wizard of Oz world, and I will not accept.
Yeah.
What are they called? Metachlorians?
Midichlorians?
Not
No.
accepted.
Okay.
There's just
What
can
are
see that.
midichlorians?
All right. Well, I guess we can move on to our next movie.
Yeah.
Yes. What should
Beautiful. I
What
think
calls to us
we
next?
should. Well,
Shall we do
I
the
think-
other musical? or
yeah.
shall
I
we-
think let's continue with the musicals.
Let's should we rip the band-aid off?
Yes, let's just do it because
All right,
that's what
so
people are here
No
for.
spoilers to my number, but it is one brushstroke.
Yes, I know. So 1 second, people. This is gonna be, and I'm just gonna write the whole name right here, even with the accent.
Of course. Oh, I think I just shared it. No spoilers.
All right. 3, 2, 1. So I give it a 2.
I get
Gray
a
give it a
negative
1,
10.
and Miguel give it a negative 10. Okay. So what a
I think the best way to describe this film is that there's not a single redeeming thing about it.
No.
I mean,
I very slightly disagree with that, but that's okay.
I was I've watched almost every one of these films pirated. And so when I was pirating this film, I was like, I recognize this cinematography. And I didn't have captions, that's just how it goes on my website. So I was like, where can I watch this? And Miguel went, oh, it's on Netflix. Just watch it on Netflix.
Yeah.
There it is. It's the most Netflix shot film I've ever seen in my life.
Yes. Let's just start right ahead with it.
Oh,
It is
man.
a Netflix production,
By a French director.
directed by a French guy,
Shot in France.
shot in France with American actors and European actors, about Mexico's drug problem, especially with the cartels and people disappearance. About a trans man who decides to
Trans woman.
my bad, living in Mexico City and just trying to wrap around her new life as a musical.
That
In paper, this movie sounds amazing. And I remember reading about this movie way before it hit the platforms. And I was like, okay, let's see how this goes. But then something happened on the way to the laundromat. And then we received this product right here.
Yes.
And I want to know what happened there. And first of all, my issues with this movie are not that it's about trans people, are not that it's about Mexico, it's
Right.
not that it's made with little research. I am interested in this movie as a flop, as a whole, why this movie sucks so much in every single level. There is not a single good musical number.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. I mean, really, for it being a musical,
Yes.
it severely lacks music.
Yes. But a magnificent script, a talented cast, and a beautiful cinematography is what Emilia does not have.
Okay.
Nowhere to be seen any of those three.
Yeah.
Oh man, I mean, I think one of the biggest problems with it is that, so by now I hope people watching this have seen the movie, but just to like reiterate, like it's about a trans woman who is, before she transitions, she's living as she's a drug lord,
The head of a cartel.
head of a cartel, and it treats like when she transitions, she has a new, she basically fakes her death, changes her name, has a new life, so to speak, and or the movie wants you to think she has a new life, and that almost treats that like her redemption arc just because she transitions, and
100%.
and then she is like, oh, I want to help people find their missing family, and then she dies at the end, and then there's like
Yes.
that march, there's like a funeral march at the end,
Yes.
of people like, basically saying your praises, and that's at the end of the movie. Obviously, I was like thinking about how bizarre this narrative is of like, oh, just because you are now living as a you're living your authentic self as a trans person, but that's like somehow a death of your past self, and it wipes away, like, the people that are, doing, like, basically eulogizing her are the same people that she basically tormented and terrorized as the leader of her cartel that, without a doubt, has done horrible things to many people.
Yeah.
And with that, yes, the movie's in a way trying to help the missing people in Mexico, but do they ever get to that part? Do they? No, they just have this website or organization, but it doesn't go beyond that. More to the point, they know exactly what the problem is, supposedly in the movie, but they don't do anything about it.
Yeah.
And that's right. At the end, to have that ending where, spoilers, everybody dies. Where is this movie going? What is this movie trying to tell? I have so many questions regarding we know who financed this movie. That was Netflix. I just would like to know why this movie was financed. How did it get approved? And why is it getting nominated for so many
Yeah, it like
awards
completely
and
dominated the
winning?
Golden Globes.
Winning.
Yeah.
Completely dominated.
It's nominated for 13 Oscars.
I know.
13.
But the craziest part is that I'm sure you might remember a movie back in the 90s, Shakespeare in Love.
Okay.
I haven't seen it. It's on my list. but I
Yes,
haven't
yes,
seen
yes. Well, back in those Academy Awards, that was the movie that took everyone by surprise because it was the worst movie that year, competing for the Academy Awards, nominated for about the same amount, a couple less, and it won Best Picture.
it. Well, Green
And
Book
the
won.
Green Book.
Which Green Book is not as bad as Emilia Pérez.
No.
But it is not a very good movie.
But
and
let
it
me
won
tell
Best
you,
Picture in
the same
2019 or whatever,
person
2018.
running the marketing campaign for Shakespeare in Love is the same person running the marketing campaign for Emilia Pérez.
Is that a joke or are you serious?
No, it is for real. It's
In
the
real
same
life.
person in real life. This woman,
Well, clearly they're successful.
Yeah.
They're
figured
amazing
something
at their
out.
job,
Yeah.
and
apparently.
that's just gonna be how it's working.
Well,
Yeah.
the most frustrating thing for me is not that it was nominated so many times, and it was not even the narrative, which I hated with
Yeah.
my whole heart and soul.
but are you gonna tell me that this musical, Emilia Pérez, was in any way, shape, or form superior than
to
Wicked?
Wicked, that's what I was about to say.
I would love to see.
What- I thought I enjoyed thoroughly Wicked.
Yes.
It
Yes.
wasn't like my favorite movie of the year, but I enjoyed it thoroughly, and the colors and the shots and the dancing and the music and the characters and
Yeah.
it's a very engaging film. Emilia Pérez feels like homework.
It was a chore.
You're never engaged. The music, there's borderline no instruments in the
No,
songs.
and I
It's
can
like-
guarantee you, the casting call was, "Can you whisper of Q? Give us a call. We have a job for you." And that was the exact same directorial comment that was made as they were spitting this dialogue.
Well,
Just
the thing about the music
whisper it
that frustrated me so
and
much
never hit a note.
is that there was no melody, and also there was no like, they didn't even think about rhyming or like, it's just, and I guess this is like
Nothing.
nitpicking, but you could not be farther from like musical music than you are in Emilia Pérez. And it just, when a musical number comes on, you're like, okay, and then they just sit there and they go like, estamos aquí, estamos aquí.
And let me tell you
estamos
this.
aquí."
Let me tell you this. As a native speaker in Spanish,
Right.
I know exactly what some of the songs were supposed to say. But since they were using
Like Google Translated.
but since they were using Google Translate, it translated the wrong thing. So when you're hearing these songs, you're like, okay, this word doesn't really fit here. Did they mean to say? And yes, they meant to say that.
That's funny
But
that you
since
mentioned that.
it went through no quality control, nobody involved in this production knows a single bit of Spanish. It just went that way.
It's funny that you say that because one of the first things that I said to you after watching that movie is that it felt like Gray Litke Spanish.
Yes.
It was like almost too easy for me to understand because all of it was like so Google translated and so like Spanish student and not like Spanish speaker.
And that is the sad part, at least what I think. Because this movie came out everywhere in the world, but in the country that's supposed to be taking place. And
Wait,
I think
it
this is
wasn't released in theaters
it
in
was
Mexico?
not released in theaters in Mexico up until 2 weeks ago, and that's for a reason.
That was
Yes.
yeah.
Because I can guarantee you, had that movie come out in the same day as the United States, which was November 1st, which is Dia de Muertos in Mexico, it would have not had the success that it had
Yeah.
up until this point.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean,
So-
I think the Spanish is a very representative trait of that movie overall because it just shows
It's-
that
it's
no
supposed to
one
be
knew what they
taking
were
place.
doing and no one checked.
It's supposed to be taking place in Mexico, so you would expect to at least have people who can speak the language. And even if you don't, you prepare these actresses or
Yeah.
actors to deliver a better job.
Yeah.
But there was no research done. There was nobody making sure that the language was being spoken properly. And so this is the result.
And here's the unfortunate thing. What's the name of the actress who plays Emilia Pérez?
Carla Sofia Gascon.
Okay, so she is nominated for Best Actress.
Yes.
She's the first trans woman to be nominated for that category. Historic, and that should be great and something to celebrate. Unfortunately, it's for a bad movie, and she's not a great person
No.
either.
Yeah.
It came out like I don't know
Yes.
2 weeks ago that she has said like a bunch of really
But even
racist
then,
and Islamophobic.
and I'm sorry,
stuff.
but I've seen the movies that this person did as a man, and I've seen the movies that now it's doing as a woman, and they all suck. There's not a single...
She's not a good actress.
No.
Yeah.
And even if the movie, because there's a really good Mexican movie called Nosotros los Nobles, and that one is a beautiful, beautiful movie up until we get to see this person on screen.
Wow.
Yes.
Literally bogged
And
down
then
the entire film.
she brings it down that much.
Brings it down.
Wow.
There's no character development. There is just a single neutral monotone that's being used in every single scene that happens. And it just keeps translating because, of course, there was never some preparation, never artistic preparation. And at least for me, with my background in theater, music theater, seeing this, it was just...
And something I feel like we haven't touched on as much. I mean, we've talked about the Spanish, and we talked about the music, and we talked about the acting. How that film is shot, and I've kind of already said a little bit.
With an iPhone, probably.
I mean, it just feels like they took a camera and they just were like, all right, they were just like, all right, Miguel is in this shot, so I'm going to have Miguel be centered in this shot. There's nothing else going on, and it's going to follow him, and he's going to be in the center. And like, that can be used artistically, but when that is the entire film, I don't know how to describe it other than it just feels Netflixy. It feels cheap. It feels like they just wanted to get the idea across without expressing anything.
Yeah.
It made the whole film flat and bland, and like the even when they try and be artistic in the musical numbers, like there's this one about like missing kids or the kids whose parents were missing or something like that, and it had like all their heads lit up on a black screen. Even that wasn't interesting. And
No, it wasn't at all.
Because it's trying so hard to tell something, and at the end it just tells you nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there were some... The saddest part to me, at least, is that there were so many beautiful international films that didn't make the cut because of this abomination. Having all these resources
Because Evil Within was
behind.
2024, right?
Yes, from Netflix. And they are trying to give you the wrong message from a culture that's so much more than its drug problems.
Yeah.
Right.
A culture that's, I think it's doing even way better than the United States regarding trans rights. And you don't get to see any of that in this movie.
Yeah.
Because again, there was no research done on the actual country that it's trying to approach. And sadly, for good or for bad, this movie is achieving as much as it is, because there's those who speak poorly about the movie and there's those who speak greatly about the movie. It's just getting the attention that it so desperately wanted.
Well, to avoid us giving it too much attention, maybe we should let it
So,
lay on the ground.
Yeah.
to conclude, it is not a good movie.
Not only is it a bad movie, but it's a sad misrepresentation of what it's trying to represent.
It's not good. We should move on. But it's not good, as you've laid out. Like, it's not good representation of Mexican culture or the Spanish language.
Anything.
Not good trans representation. I encourage you to do research into that. There are a lot of like trans people that have written about how harmful elements of this are, and then all of the stuff that makes movies. I think the only reason I gave it a 2, I think the only part of it that I thought was like, okay, that's not too bad, was when Emilia Pérez is giving a little speech and everyone freezes and Zoe Saldana's character is like walking around and singing her song. I was like, oh, that's all right. But other than that, not worth your time.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Moving on.
We have escaped the realm of musicals.
Let's bring it into
Get as morbid as we can and talk about the substance.
All right.
Ooh, okay.
I have to think about this one for a minute because I actually,
You and I both saw this pretty recently.
yeah, this is
I saw this
fresh.
2 days ago.
I saw this movie
gosh.
on Halloween.
Ooh.
Oh, shit. Okay. I might have to explain I think I've messed up my number a bit. I guess that's an on theme. Just watched you change. Oh, okay.
Interesting.
Okay. I think we're all about on the same page here.
Beautiful. All right. Ready?
We all seem to have given it about an 8.
8.5?
8.
Okay.
A 9 from a 9 to an 8.5.
From a 9 to a... Yeah, and I was just, okay, thinking about it. So, want to tell us what the substance is about?
Oh gosh. So yeah, the substance is this like, I guess I'd call it like a, it's not really psychological horror, it's kind of just like body horror.
Body horror, yeah.
It's about this middle-aged woman who used to be like a Zumba celebrity who feels these pressures from the industry to be more beautiful and be more young and stay this like perfect image of like a sexy young.
And she's also acted. Like, I remember she either won or was nominated for an Oscar at one point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
And she takes this substance that like births a younger, like not really version of her. It's like a different person entirely, but
Yeah.
oh, it's hard to explain. It's just
Yes.
like this strange jumping back and forth between this young, like very wanted in the industry version of herself, and then that kind of reflects back on her older self and kind of makes her hate herself more.
I think it's the movie kind of asks you, how far would you go
Exactly.
in order to always remain like current
Exactly.
with the events, or what are the lengths that you go to be youthful
Yeah,
forever?
and it also just shows how, I think realistically, obviously not, but in a way, the impacts on the main character are very realistic on this constant pressure to like stay completely
yeah.
static, and like just the way that they show this character like kind of destroying herself to try and conform to the wants of these like super creepy old
Man.
Yes.
men.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think that gives us a realization as a society. We have the man protagonist in this film who's obviously aging, and he's still
Yeah.
the head of whatever enterprise.
Super powerful.
Yes,
He's
exactly.
sitting there just going like name and measurements. Oh, like what's up with her nose?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Yeah.
So
Eating
he-
shrimp like disgustingly.
Oh my god, I had to skip that scene. I couldn't do it.
He's able
my
to
God.
critique how everything is going on. And then we have Demi Moore portraying this middle-aged woman at the end of her career, ugly, fat, career in shambles. She's just trying for an opportunity that it's being denied because she doesn't look 20 anymore.
Yeah. And we should say that ugly fat Colonel Shambles.
At the end of the film.
Well, yes, but no, not just that, but like, you know, we get an indication that she is not going to be on her
Yes.
show anymore. But
But
like,
is
she
she-
is fabulously wealthy.
Is she
Yeah.
any of those?
She's successful
and she
No.
is like, you know, I would say not conventionally unattractive
No,
for a woman
no,
her age.
no.
she's gorgeous and in
Yeah.
good health, and she has like a
Yes.
penthouse and like
Yeah.
her own show, and posters are up, and
So
she just gets that
clearly
little
she's
worm in her head.
successful, but she's about to be, or about to get the boot, pretty much.
Yes.
Her time is up. But is that really the case? Because I see that movie and I see she can still go on for another
Oh no,
10
she
years, 20 years.
she 100% gets lost in that illusion.
I would
Yeah.
love to be 50 and look like that.
Oh god, are you kidding me?
Well, so the thing is this show that she's doing both. I mean, we see a little bit of her doing the show, but then when Sue is doing the show doesn't make any like sense at all. Like
Yeah.
they never say what network it is.
Yeah.
They never even. All we know is that it's called Pump It Up.
Yeah.
And then when it's the show, it's basically it's not even exercises.
No, it's like twerking on
she's
camera, just like
thrusting at the camera.
Yeah.
And what's interesting about it is like there are a lot of gratuitous shots of like her butt and her crotch, and obviously she's wearing, and the other people that are like her backup dancers basically
Yeah.
are wearing like very revealing outfits, but like because it's so nonsensical, like it's a lampoon of like what society hyper focuses on as like sexy.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because like it's weird. Like it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And you would think this is only a movie. No, this happens.
I know, yeah.
As Demi Moore pointed out when she won the Golden Globe, which was very well deserved.
I agree.
She was thinking that her career was over because she wasn't young anymore. And then we have this movie that just takes it a step higher than what the situation is.
Right.
But this is a reality that many people in the industry have to face, that unless you're a white man, you are not going to have any more lead roles for movies,
Yeah.
especially if you're a woman, because you simply won't justify the investment, and people don't want to see you and your wrinkly face. So we're gonna hire fresh meat.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I think one of the things that is so telling of how good this movie is how we can immediately jump in and talk about what the movie means rather than what
Yeah.
the movie is.
Yeah.
I mean, with these last two movies, we're kind of talking about the actual substance of what's on screen, and this movie so effectively says what it's trying to say, and kind of building off what you were saying about emphasizing, like, oh, grinding and thrusting your
Yeah.
butt in front of the camera. Like, when I'm watching that insane emphasized scene, I'm like, oh god, this is like weird, this is awkward.
Yeah.
Like, why would anyone like watch this? But it's a very realistic reflection of, I mean, I don't know, I guess we've already been saying this,
yeah.
but it's a very realistic reflection of how the industry actually operates and how predatory and how it actually pays off. And like
Yes.
it pays off for Sue ridiculously.
And how like it treats sex or even like
Yeah.
women in the industry is like, well, the idea of this show that she's doing, it's like, or even the New Year's show, which again we never know what the show is or like what network it's on
Yeah.
or anything. I think even at the New Year's show before she, and we can get to what she looks like when she goes to the New Year's show, but it's supposed to be live network television, and they're literally like rows of topless women.
Yeah.
Like, but the whole, I feel like what it's trying to say is like, it's a satire obviously, but it's like, oh, whatever the shell of like a plot or a point of like the media that's being produced, whether it's an exercise show or like a New Year's Eve performance, it's basically non-existent because
Yeah.
the point is like the body.
You're gonna
of
look
the-
at these young women and I'm gonna
Yeah.
get paid off of it.
Yeah.
Like,
And how do you two feel watching this movie throughout the movie?
I had to like, I knew it was body horror and like, I had to look away a lot, not because of the body horror element. There were a lot of needles.
Same.
Where I was like, ah.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing is that I feel like with all the like medical like injection stuff and the body horror, like people erupting from people stuff,
Yeah.
and this like I would say equally grotesque like depiction of
Yeah.
media and the industry, I think throughout the entire film I was equally unsettled and disturbed by all three of those things. And
I'm yet to find a single person who did not feel some sort of discomfort, uncomfortable watching this movie.
oh yeah,
Because
Oh yeah, totally.
it hits every single level of disgust. From the movie scene with the shrimp, those who
Oh my
hate seeing
God.
people chewing with their mouths open,
that was the worst scene of the whole film.
Dennis Quaid in general
Yes,
in the movie,
exactly.
just like a freak.
Yeah.
people introducing needles, or just needles being introduced in any part of the body, fluids coming out of your body, just pretty much every single thing that anyone could think would make you uncomfortable during a movie happens in this movie, but that doesn't make it any less good of a movie.
Oh yeah,
Because-
I mean, sitting in that, I feel like is the point of the message of the film.
Yes.
It kind of forces you to be like, I hate this, but
To
it's
realize
not outside of what's actually happening.
what's actually
Yeah.
happened, which is telling you what's happened might be even way worse than what we're showing you
Yeah.
here,
Yeah.
and it's real.
Where are the weird Igor multiple people in our real world?
Yeah. And we might not have right now people who are injecting fluids into their body and making another person appear, but we are seeing, especially people in the industry, going to some other countries to get a whole facial
Oh my
reconstruction.
god, yeah, and it's so
or just-
self-destructive.
Yes. Or getting into this impossible diets to follow just so that they could look super skinny.
And like for other people.
For other
exactly.
people,
Yeah.
exactly.
It does. They most of the times it's not even for them to feel better about themselves, but it's for them to feel better because other people feel better when they are seeing that person, and that's what's
Yeah.
incredibly troubling. Because once you start doing things for other people, it's like, well, what's next? You already agreed to do this, so next time that they say, "Oh, your nose looks crooked," are you gonna go and just destroy your nose so that other people can enjoy it, or what's gonna happen here?
Ugh.
Is your nose messed up?
Oh god, yeah.
Wait.
So when I walk into the,
Oh,
I have
yeah.
a deviated septum. When I walk into the office, sometimes I will be received with, "Oh, you poor thing, look at your nose," and I'll go, "Okay, well."
Wait, what?
For the
Really?
whole next week, I'll be like, "Okay, I guess I'm gonna look into getting my nose fixed."
I think I
got your
fixed
nose
my
fixed.
nose. Yes, and it's been a beautiful decision. But I did it for me because I was having a lot of issues sleeping.
Yeah. And that's something we should say. Like some people do modify their body
Yeah.
in some way. There's nothing like wrong with that
No.
on its
No.
face. But yeah, I mean, but there are, and that's what this movie is kind of going into, is like there are, especially for women, especially in this sort of industry, there are like there historically and now have been like really gross and weird social pressures
Yes.
Yeah.
on people to look like forever beautiful, and then when they have an imperfection, then it's like, well, your career's over.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's
So-
like, well,
Yes.
Beyond the, and cut me off if I'm venturing too early, I guess.
Okay.
But beyond just the plot of the film, I would like to talk about how it was shot
Yes.
oh my god.
so strikingly and so well. I mean,
Beautifully.
I love me a film where you can tell how intentional the sets are.
Yes.
And the substance, every set feels so intentional, and it almost reminded me of like a play in the way that there were like 3 kind of central stages that they just they kept coming back to,
Yes.
like the penthouse, the hallway, and the locker room, and like I guess the bathroom.
Yeah.
Oh, right, like the white tiled.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
And I think that has to do a lot with the inspiration it drew
Yes.
from.
There are so many incredible,
The
like secret,
Shining.
I guess
Yes.
secret homages
Easter
to
eggs.
classic
Yes.
horror.
Yeah.
I mean, The Shining is definitely, I think, the most obvious, and then
Carrie.
Carrie. I was about to say Cassie, and then also my boy JC, John Carpenter.
Mm-hmm.
Very very much taken out of the Thing's playbook.
Yes.
Yes.
And I mean, I think there still are. If you're like a film guy, you probably have seen The Thing, but I just think it hasn't really been done in that way in a very long time. And I love
Yeah,
that
no,
movie, and
you-
so it was so refreshing to see someone try and do that again. I feel like no one
It's-
really.
It's always appreciated when someone goes the extra mile and actually delivers something
Yeah.
for others to enjoy.
And it doesn't feel like copying in any.
No.
It always feels like they're paying respect
Yes.
and using it effectively for their own purpose
And
instead of
that's
just
what
being like, oh, the
happens-
shining scene in the movie.
That's what happens when a movie is done with love.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
When somebody's taking care of the littlest thing, from the person who does costume, from the person who does the cleaning, from everyone who's doing the cinematography, the score, the everything, this is a good result.
Yeah.
The substance.
Yep.
To me, I did not include this movie on my top 15 films of the year, but I did include it on my top 10 horror movies of the year, because to me,
I think that's right.
this movie, it is horror. And I'm
Yeah,
really
I
happy
agree.
that the Academy Awards, which they don't do often, recognize horror movies. Because there can be some powerful horror movies out there that have messages like these
Yeah.
that can totally change the perspective that somebody has.
Yeah.
And last year was a decent year for horror films.
What did
You
we get
have-
last year?
Me in 2024.
Yes,
Oh,
2024.
okay, yeah. Evil Within.
Yes, when evil lurks.
Or Evil Within. What am I talking about? When Evil Lurks. that's what it's
Terrifier
called.
3, bro.
Yeah, no.
Don't even get me
and-
started with that film. Oh my god.
But so many beautiful so many beautiful movies that were made, at least in the horror genre, and I'm so glad that we have this movie, and
Yeah.
I sure hope Demi Moore. I don't see why she wouldn't pick up that Oscar for Best Actress
Oh, God.
in this movie.
I think so.
It's
I
her
think so.
time.
I don't. I mean, and there are still a good handful that I haven't seen so far, but it was just a very striking performance.
Even with I'm Still Here, which I think should be the one
Really?
going home
Okay.
with Best International Film,
Okay.
the main actress is also nominated for the Best Actor award, but it's just gonna be it has to be Demi Moore. No one could really. I don't see this movie working out with any other actress at this point.
What about,
It was.
and we're not going to get into Honora, but what about the woman from Honora?
She did such a fantastic
She was pretty great.
Fantastic job. Yes.
Something else about The Substance that I was not expecting to be so good and leave such a lasting impression on me, it was the score. The whole
Yeah.
film has this grainy, technological, like
industrial
pulsing
almost.
industrial score that in such a weirdly abstract way conveys this grating. It's hard. I don't even know how to explain it.
I think it's just all part of the experience.
Yeah,
Have you ever been to Six Flags?
I think so.
Yes. Okay, so have you?
No.
I think
All right,
so.
but let me just tell you, as you go into the ride for Six Flags, some of them present you with some sort of video or audio, or they're just something coming out of the speakers that are part of the experience that you go through the ride. And then as you go, you keep listening to the sounds, you keep seeing clips being played from here. And the one I'm referencing, it's one in Mexico that's about the Joker. So you can see everything, the story, Gotham City, what's happening, and it's everything making you part of that story. And at least that's what the substance is trying to make.
Yeah, dude.
It's
Very Joker.
inviting you.
Joker roller coaster.
It's inviting you to come to this New Year's special
Yeah.
and be our guest.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what happens there. You feel one in the movie. You feel that you're one seeing these events unfold.
Mm-hmm.
And at least to me, when Demi Moore is laying down there in the bathroom, I was right next to her. I was there. feeling exactly the same. And that can only be achieved with an amazing
With all
camera
those
movement,
parts
with all
coming
those
together,
parts
yeah.
coming together.
Oh god, the camera movement too, yeah, so good. I love it when you can when you can just see that intentional effort that they put in with the
Yeah.
camera, and I mean, you see it in Anora too. I just feel like modern directors are just so afraid of pressing the zoom button on a camera, man. They're so afraid of doing this for some reason. And they did it in Anora. They literally just like did a completely. They didn't like ramp it up or ramp out of it. It was just like a completely consistent zoom through like a taxi car. And for some reason, I was like, oh man, I haven't seen this in like since like, I don't want to say since Jaws, you know, but
But it's
But there.
yeah, it's not as common now.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's present in Substance too.
Yeah.
And it just is.
Overall.
I live for that shit.
An amazing movie. Yes. All right.
We should move on to
Move on to our next film.
Conclave.
Sure.
Shall we? Yes.
Oh,
yes,
man.
Of course.
Man, oh man, this movie. I'm gonna give it one of these, and I'm gonna give it one of those. I think, yeah, I'm gonna give it one of those.
3, 2, 1. Even an 8. Gray's a 9, and you're a 9. Okay, so we're pretty like in line about this one.
So, yeah, let's picture this. What would happen if House of Cards happened in the Vatican City?
Conclave.
Yes, this is what.
Well, it's a little bit more realistic and grounded, I feel like, than
Let's-
House of Cards.
The things I have to say about this film are very similar to the things I have to say about The Substance, in the sense that the writing, the acting, the cinematography, the sets, the score, it just all comes together so nicely, and you can
Yes.
just feel how intentional all of it is.
Just love the performances.
Yes.
Ray Fiennes
Yeah.
and Stanley Tucci,
Yep.
especially.
The way that I approached this film was separating the politics from faith.
Mm.
And let me tell you, watching this movie after election night was a rough watch. Was a tough
Yeah.
watch. So let's get into it. The Pope just died. And it is now
In the movie.
in the movie. And it is now Dean Lawrence's job to gather all the cardinals and
Pick a new pope.
pick a new pope. So how is this gonna happen?
And something I love about what they did in that film is that they start. I think one of the biggest messages of that film is tradition in a modern age, and kind of grappling with doing things the way that they have always been done versus doing things that doesn't always necessarily mean that you're doing things the way they should be.
And that yes,
And my favorite way that they showed that is right at the beginning of the movie. Everyone is just showing up to this conclave, and it shows like a pile of cigarette butts on the ground, like in this like sculpted I don't even know what kind of architecture that building was. Just this beautiful like Gothic
Yeah.
building.
One dude's
There's-
scrolling on
He's
reels.
scrolling on reels. The guy like in this full like religious robe, and he's just on his phone, just going like,
making it human.
One hits a jewel. you
yeah,
know.
exactly. Yeah.
But I think that's the beauty of this movie.
Yeah.
Because from the beginning, it's telling you the mission is clear. We have to elect from among us who are the best of the best, and we have this much power. We have to give even more power to one of us. And who's that one gonna be? It could either be the one who's gonna bring back the way that we've been doing things, and it's gonna
Yeah.
take them back.
Yep.
So to be more conservative, or we can open it to new possibilities and make them more liberal.
Or somewhere in the middle.
Or somewhere in
Yeah,
the
you don't
middle.
know.
there were so many different people kind of vying
Yes.
for their own. There
And
was not a perfect.
Every single one was already established.
Yeah.
You could see, even in the movie, you could see, okay, the Spanish congregation is sitting over there, the ones from Latin America over there, the ones that speak English over there. Just everyone already
That's a
had
very good
their
point.
formed groups.
No one was listening to each other, and
no,
that
no,
was
no.
the whole.
They were set
Yeah.
in their ways.
Yep.
And then you have to choose the one that's gonna get even more power and from that's the direction that you're gonna take.
Not even more. It's like, from their perspective, from their religious
Yes.
perspective, God's representative on earth.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
The most important person in the world, bar none.
Yeah.
who among us is the one that's the purest, the goodest, pretty much?
Yeah.
But then what do you have? You have an hour before they're gonna be sequestered. You have an investigation about the last meeting the dead pope had about one of these candidates for
Yep.
the new papacy. And it's just so beautiful.
Oh, it's so good. I just love.
It's one of those movies that it's like a stove and you put it in the back burner and you just leave it there in slow and it just gets more and more
And that's one of the only critiques I've heard, and which I don't honestly agree with, is that kind of slow burn. Some of my friends found it like boring, and I mean, I was so engaged. It's like a political drama, so you
Yeah.
kinda
It is a
have to like
political
kind
drama.
of key in
And
to
it's-
follow all of it. But
It's funny to phrase it like this because Ray Fiennes plays such a subdued and like not sure of himself character, but Ray Fiennes is like the engine
Yeah.
of this movie. Like
Yes.
there are scenes where he doesn't even say a word. He's just alone in his apartment.
Yeah.
But you literally see him think through things
Mm-hmm.
from his like he's a very anxious guy, and not like what's the word, like unrealistically or paranoid, like in a paranoid way, because like this is a very anxiety-inducing
Yeah.
situation.
Yeah.
And he just doesn't want to be there, and he's like,
But,
it's so
yes.
he does it so well.
It just has such a good dynamic showing you all the different type of powers that one could have. Because you see it too with the nuns. The sister,
Yeah,
she has what you would call invisible power.
soft power.
Yes, soft
Yeah.
power. She really has none of it, yet at the same time, she's creating all this massive movement within that you didn't know it was possible. And the actress just delivers a magnificent performance in the short 8 minutes that she had on screen.
Right, subdued but so
Yes.
important.
So,
important,
yes.
yeah.
And I think that's a beautiful thing that Conclave has. It's showing you that, yes, you can have all this power, but it doesn't really work unless you know how to position yourself. Because very early on, we have our board set. We knew exactly what our pieces were.
Yeah.
And they just have to move meticulously so that the end product was amazing. And I don't know about you, but this is a movie that I did not expect the ending.
I was
The
about to say
twist is
the twist at
crazy.
the
The
end.
twist at the
I
end?
gasped in
Me too.
theaters.
I also gasped in the theater.
I had a really participant audience when I saw this movie,
Yeah, me too.
and they just couldn't believe it.
And I mean, what a
Did
powerful
all three of us
way
see it
to
at the Pickford?
yeah.
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 What a powerful
Shout
way
out
to
to
end
the
that
Pickford.
film, and what a wonderful way to kind of put a bow on the message of the film.
Yes.
To have this pope be a trans man.
Or intersex.
Intersex.
Intersex. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't even know how to. It was so powerful. in the
Yeah,
theaters.
and I think the reason why it's so worth mentioning or so like wow, it's because it's never been done before.
Yeah.
Just trying to imagine this happening in the real world, at least with the society that we have, it's just like, no, that would never happen.
I mean, yeah.
And then up until it does.
Oh God, Voldemort.
Yes, Ralph.
Very fine.
His reaction, he looked like the world was ending for a second. I mean, you could see on the characters in the film's faces that
Yes.
All
it's
the
a big
lines on
deal
his
to these
forehead.
religious people. Like, I mean, I'm not religious, and to me, it doesn't make literally
But see,
any difference
You didn't
Yeah.
even have to be religious
to
to
understand
enjoy this movie.
to understand the weight.
To understand,
Yeah.
to watch this movie. Because I heard many people saying, oh, I don't watch Conclave because I'm not religious at all. And then you don't have to. This movie, yes,
It's about
especially-
religion.
It's about a religious process, that became political.
Yeah.
Especially in recent years.
Mm-hmm.
It does touches on faith, which
But universally.
yes,
It
Because
touches
everyone
on how
has-
faith operates in society. It doesn't-
Yeah.
everyone has had doubt. Everyone has doubts. Everyone has uncertainty. Everyone is afraid to make this big change in their lives. And it's just trying to make it. I think the movie was trying to make this institution feel human. With the vaping, with the smoking, with the
Yeah.
scrolling.
Well,
it
to
was
me that-
trying to shed a new light
Yeah.
on something that they are imperfect too.
I think for me, it was less trying to humanize faith, I guess, and more just trying to sort of point out that faith. I mean, it's just the times are changing.
Times are changing. Yes,
Times
exactly.
are changing, and you can't always just stick in the past.
To your ways. And again, watching this after election night, seeing how they gather together to choose the lesser of evils
Yeah.
because they go through most of them, showing what they are not good options, why everyone has faults, why everyone has committed some sort of sin in the past, yet
Right.
they are up to be
Yeah,
elected.
that's a good point. That's the humanization that you were talking about.
And from this conclave,
Yeah.
one
Yeah.
has to come out victorious.
And beyond the message and
yes.
plot, shot real well. Colors, oh man. It reminded me of the Babadook in the sense that they just really, not in the plot at all, but the direction just felt so intentional with using monochrome and using
Yes.
color and the
Yes.
way that they use specifically red in that film.
Yeah.
Oh, just, I love it.
Red is it means power, passion, and both of those things were present throughout the movie.
I think Conclave is the one that I've seen on this list so far that I recommend to everyone. And especially like my hyper Christian grandparents, I want them to watch
Yes.
this movie so bad.
It's because it doesn't matter which background you come from.
Yeah.
This can
a
really
human
apply.
story.
It's a human story, exactly. From the moment the person dies, the Pope dies,
Yeah.
we need to elect one. That's the whole movie. That process that they have to go in order to choose who's gonna be our next representative, who's gonna carry on the legacy that we have, and which direction we're gonna be moving towards from this.
So good.
So good.
Love that movie.
Yeah.
I'm someone who, I'll watch a movie and there's like immediately like a 3-year timer that I put on it before I allow
Watch it again.
myself to watch it again. I already feel ready to rewatch Conclave. It's just
So good.
good.
Right. Well, with that, let's move to our last film,
Dune Part 2.
Dune Part 2.
Done. This is the oldest in my mind film that on this lineup.
Yeah,
watched this
I
one in
saw it,
theaters, and that's the last time I've seen it.
Almost a year ago.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
I did rewatch it with
And-
my family.
And with that,
You have it backwards. 9.5, 10.
10?
Wow, so we really like Dune Part 2.
10.
yes.
Dune Part 2 is definitely will go down in history as one of the greatest sci-fi
It is
films ever made.
A generational film. And it's just so. Before I came in here, I was thinking to myself, I should pick a film off of this list that I will like champion, and I'll be like, I think Honora should win the best, like nominated or whatever. You know what I'm saying? But Dune being in there, it's so different, and it's so hard for me to compare something like The Substance to something like Dune to something like Honora.
Wicked.
And I mean, yeah, sure,
And Emilia Pérez.
sure. But Dune, oh gosh, it's been almost a full year since I've seen it, and I still have the like, like
So we can say Dune Part 2 is to you that Wicked is to me.
I think so.
Yes. Okay. With that, I agree.
And have you read the book Wicked?
The book Wicked. I did not finish the book.
What about
Right.
Dune?
Oh, I would never. I would never.
I have
And-
not read
Well,
the
let
book.
me tell you something. And this is especially true for the first part of Dune, but the heinous, the criminal amount of love and detail they put in Dune Part 2 is so noticeable, having read the book, and like something they do in the book. And I read the book after watching Dune Part 1, and I was like, oh, this is the shit. And then I went and started reading the first the book. But you know, the Bene Gesserit are like these masters of like manipulation and like
Our plans are
conversational
measured in
analysis and like
centuries,
yeah. And they like what's his name? Frank Herbert goes into like the minds of each person when there's a Bene Gesserit in the conversation, and like the Bene Gesserit is like, okay, I'm going to kick my foot out here so you see I'm nonchalant, but I'm going to keep my gaze in my hand just like this so you think that I'm very serious, and I'm going to, when I blink like this, you're going to know that like what I want is going to happen. And then the other guy goes into his brain and he's like, oh my god, this Bene Gesserit person is really speaking my mind. I mean, I totally agree.
In that voice,
And-
I'm sure.
I didn't realize it on my first way through Dune Part 1 and Part 2, but they include all of that in the film completely with like looks. And if you read the book, you pick up on all these little tiny
Wow.
details in every scene, and it just fleshes it out. And I mean, like in Part 1, you even see like in the backgrounds of shots, like they have the portraits and like the head of the game that they hunted. That's an important symbol in the book. And
Yeah.
like, they include and put so much attention to detail in the sets, in the outfits, in the settings, and I guess that's the sets. And I mean, the score is something that they had to completely invent for the film. That's completely outside of the book, and it makes it all. It's so at home in the setting. I just am so hard pressed to find such a well done piece of art on every single front. I mean, there's not a part of this film that is not just stuck in my mind a year later.
Yes, I do agree in every single aspect. The thing for me is that I don't like sci-fi.
Yeah.
I've been reviewing movies for 16 years.
Right.
And sci-fi, it's one of those genres that I just could
Yeah, yeah.
never get into. Alien, I can't do Alien. 2001 Space
I'm
Oddity,
sitting up for this.
I cannot do.
You're kidding me.
I can't.
Okay, I get that. I don't get Alien.
But just because of the setting, just completely
Just
because of the setting.
sci-fi.
Yeah, the setting of
second
sci-fi. You see a
you're-
spaceship and you're like, this is garbage.
And lately Star Wars or Star Trek, I just cannot.
Okay,
Is it that it's corny to you?
the
or like,
I will say the two Star Trek movies you've seen are Star Trek Section 31 and Star Trek Into Darkness. The two
Okay.
worst Star Trek movies
gotta
ever
watch like
produced.
New Generation or whatever.
Next
it's called.
Generation.
Next Generation.
But that's the thing. I
Rating.
really can wrap my brain around sci-fi. And I remember
Yeah.
when I was doing my list for best movies 2025, the one up until that moment, I only had Dune with 5 stars. Dune Part 2 with 5 stars.
So even though you don't like sci-fi,
But
this
even
film,
though, but it was the only one that up at that point I had seen, and that's when I watched Enora, and it sort of felt that I needed to justify not having a sci-fi movie as my top movie, so I dropped it to the second place.
nice, yeah.
But as a movie, it is amazing, from the cinematography, from
Oh,
the
man,
score,
yeah.
Oh my,
the acting, costume design.
I mean,
So many sequences are like mind bending.
Yes,
Like
everything.
I think at the point in the movie that I was watching it, and I was like, "Wow, I am watching something kind of like historically special." And it's not a very long scene, but it feels in a good way. It feels long when I watched it first in the theater. Then when I watched it at home, I was like, "Oh, this isn't actually that long." When the first time Paul and Chani like attack the spice harvester,
Yeah.
And they have like the rocket launcher and they share the ornithopter, and it's like, wow, every part of this, it really feels like I'm watching like two guerrilla fighters.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
all the things that they're doing are like, obviously it's a sci-fi fantasy-ish setting. It's not realistic in that sense, but the tactics they're doing, the choices that these characters are making in this situation, it's like,
they're bound.
that's all intentional and really smart writing.
This is something that I say about a lot of films, and this is something that I gave a lot of praise to this Argentinian horror film, When Evil Lurks.
Yeah.
When characters are strictly and obviously bound to the rules of the world that they're in, it makes the story feel so complete and so good. An issue I have with a lot of modern books and modern authors is how fan fiction-y it feels, and how they kind of can pull anything out of the hat, and it's like, this is happening in the story, and it takes me out of it. And that, I mean, it's a ridiculously fantastical world, Dune, but they still adhere to all of this so much with the navigators and the spice being this.
There are rules.
There are rules, and they're adhered to.
This is how shields work. This is how FTL works.
Exactly.
And at least I felt that's what Dune 1 was about. It was explaining you setting in everything, so that Dune 2 could just get rid of all that explaining.
Dune 1 went, they're gonna ride that worm.
Yes.
Dude. And then Dune 2, you watch them ride that worm so many times.
Dune 1 was so that Dune 2 could run.
Exactly. And the scene...
And let me just say, I read the Spark Notes for the first Dune movie.
Okay.
And my conclusion was just, there's nothing here other than these people are really good at math. And that was it. And if I start deconstructing the book, that's ultimately what I get. Just people who are really good at math, and that's what Timothée Chalamet is. He's just or the main guy is just really good at math.
They get high and do math.
Yes. And that was so boring to me. That's why I would and also because I don't like sci-fi, but I would never willingly pick that book up and read it from
cover to
cover. Never.
Yeah.
Not because it's people who are good at math, but because it's sci-fi. But I do appreciate, and I still can recognize greatness in front of me.
Yeah.
And both Dune Part 1 and Dune Part 2, what they have done in those two movies is nothing short of recognition. And it's something that should be out there that people, I'm pretty sure in years to come, they will be looking back at these movies
100%.
and say, this is what cinematography, this is what a film should look like.
I have two big things to talk about. Not really big things.
We are basically out of time, I should say.
No,
it's like,
let's just keep going.
No. We only have we only have till 5:30, right?
Yeah. Go. Two things about Dune.
Yeah.
That prove how timeless, in my opinion, this film is. One, this is more about just why I think it's so cool. They shot this movie on multiple different entire cameras just to prove and establish setting. I mean, it's part 2 with like the whole black and white sequence in the arena.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And that is shot all on an infrared camera. They had to make dark green outfits for all these warriors so that it would look black on an infrared camera. And then they had that whole like panning shot where they go from color inside the like viewing chamber with the
they go under the sun.
Then they go under the sun and it fades into black and white, and then everything is on this infrared camera.
As though it is sunlight.
Yeah. Sunlight that takes away color and they did it so well.
Yes.
It's so striking and it's so indicative of the level of quality throughout the entire film.
Yes.
And the second thing I have to say is that when I left the theaters for like that whole week, I was discussing with everyone I knew if this is like my generation and the generation under mine's Lord of the Rings. And ultimately, I'm gonna say it's not. Lord of the Rings will never be beat.
I think our generation's Lord of the Rings is Lord of the Rings. Yeah.
100%. It'll never. I still have not seen anything that comes close.
But I know what you mean.
But
Yes.
I had to sit there and be like, oh shit.
Maybe it's our generation's 2001.
Yeah. I feel like that's
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
Unless
All
New
right.
Stellar is, but.
Yes.
No.
Okay, well.
And with that,
That's
we are through half
one.
of the list. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Just like Dune.
We will be back next week with part
no,
2.
not next week. Well, maybe I'll delay
Just
it.
say next weekend. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll be back.
Yeah,
We'll be back
we'll
next week.
with part 2. Stay tuned. And again, you can follow us on Letterboxd. They will be displayed right under here.
Right here.
Yes. And just follow us to see what we think
that?
of our
There
opinions
it
in
goes.
movies that come
Yeah.
out.
Missed it.
And thank you for watching. Finnegan, Lidke, a pleasure. Thank you.
It's been a pleasure to see you, Miguel.
Nah,
It's been alright.
it's alright.